Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and I'm going to talk about my favorite 10 productions of 2022. And, this one's always a really tricky one for me to do, because what does production mean? Some people are like, oh, it just means fantastic miniatures. Well, you know what? It can mean fantastic miniatures, and many of the games I'm going to talk about have really good miniatures in them. But it could also just be the wooden components, the plastic inserts, the everything. This is the whole production of a game put together. The art is not particularly featured here. I'm going to be doing a different top 10 about the art. But for now, we're going to just be taking a look at my top 10 favorite games with a good production. Number 10 is Plant It. Folks, I got to say, I was really surprised on this one. Plant It, and you might say, wait a minute, this is one of the top 10 productions? Well, yeah, first of all, this game has the lowest price point to good components that I've seen in a really long time. This game came out, and I know some people got it for $20. It's normally probably $30. I don't normally mention price, but when you look at the components of this game, the art is good in this game for sure, but there's just all these different little pieces. You're collecting sun, and you're collecting water and stuff, and it looks like if you would pull it out of my library, and it is in my library, to play it, you would think, oh my word, Tom upgraded this game. No, I didn't. That's the way the game came, and that's just so impressive. I'm so glad a game like this exists, because someone will go to the store and buy it and go, holy moly, this is like a really cool looking game, and I'm glad. So number 10, Plant It. Number 9 is Mayhem. I'm going to say Looney Tunes Mayhem, but there's also Teen Titans Mayhem. Now, Mayhem, this system here from CMON, which is kind of in the genre of I have a bunch of people and we're fighting you, a bunch of people, and we run around and we're trying to do goals and also slap each other, which makes sense in Looney Tunes. And if you look at the new Teen Titans cartoon, it makes a little sense there too. And you can even have these compatible where Bugs Bunny and Beast Boy, sorry, I'm forgetting the Teen Titans names, are going up against Robin and Elmer Fudd. But the miniatures in this, they're pre-painted or pre-colored. I don't know exactly how they were put together. They're just fantastic. And the artwork and everything, it just comes together and make a really fun-looking package. Really good quality. Toy factor here is pretty high. I think the game itself is, it's okay. But the toy factor of the Mayhem games, I enjoy. Number 8 is Fall of the Mountain King. This is a prequel to Hall of the Mountain King. And Hall of the Mountain King is one of the games that put Game Trays, game insert publisher, on the map for me. And in Fall of the Mountain King, they continue to do the same thing with these really great trays that hold all the pieces. But it's not just those. You have these little plastic trolls, heroes. You have all different pieces for collecting some of the resources that you need in this game. And man, it just looks really cool. It gives me almost like vibes when we used to call these games like Dudes on a Map, where there's a bunch of little people on a map, Fortress America, and that's what this looks like. Now, it plays very differently than that. I really enjoy the game, but I think it looks and has a great production, great quality cards. Everything comes together in Fall of the Mountain King. Number 7 is Starship Captains. This is from CGE. Starship Captains is a game in which, when you look at the cover of it, you're thinking, oh, it's a Star Trek parody, even though Star Trek is now parodying itself with the show Lower Decks. And this looks a little bit like Lower Decks, but not quite. Unfortunately, the game doesn't necessarily play like that picture, but it does have just really great pieces. One of the coolest things about this is you're collecting these little workers, and they kind of slide around your board. You have these inset boards that you're playing, and it just comes together in a really cool way. That sliding isn't that big of a deal, but it has this very satisfactory feel as you move your workers, and then you're placing the workers out on the board. The different colors and everything matter. It looks really good. Starship Captains. Number 6, Transmissions. Now, some games we are going to talk about the miniatures, and Transmissions is one of those, because this game is definitely based on kind of art already, and then this art made into miniatures of kind of, oh, poor robot. They look like, they're just cute robots. And that really brings this game to life. There's these 4 robots. You can move any of the robots on your turn, and then you're collecting resources. You can make the robots work better for you than other people. And you have, again, inset boards where you're putting these tokens in the board to upgrade the robots. That's really cool. The centerpiece, the art's good too, but the centerpiece is those robot miniatures, and they do not fail. Definitely worth checking out. Transmissions. Number 5 is Townsfolk Tussle. Townsfolk Tussle, definitely building on the popularity of Cuphead, bringing back this, 20s, 30s art style. I love the theming of this game where you are fighting against, you're a bunch of townsfolk fighting against these big bosses that come in. But I'm telling you, folks, these miniatures are unbelievable. They're even better painted. My daughter painted them, and they look stunning. Townsfolk Tussle is such a stunning looking game, but the cards, the artwork on all the cards, the board, I really like in this game that there's a bunch of different terrain that you put out, but it's also very easy. Each terrain comes with its own terrain card. It tells you what it does, kind of harkening back to the old days of Memoir 44. But the production, and when you pull out Townsfolk Tussle and put it on a table, people are going to come by and stop and look and say, what are you playing? Number 4 is Veiled Fate. So Veiled Fate kind of takes a very different aspect. This is from IV Games, and honestly, I thought about putting both IV games on my list. They're both very good. That came out this year. Mythic Mischief was the other one. But I decided to go with Veiled Fate. Veiled Fate is kind of area control sort of thing, where there's demigods, you're trying to control them. There's not a lot of pieces. This is a very stark production, not a lot of artwork in this game. But wow, you put these pieces out on the board itself looks beautiful. The whole thing just gives this vibe of cool. A lot of games today, when you see them, people are going to go, nerd games. Well, okay, I don't like that kind of generalization. But when they look at Veiled Fate, I think people go, ooh, it almost looks like those games from the 70s where there's a debonair guy sitting on the cover, and he's looking at you, challenging you to play a game. That's what you feel like when you look at Veiled Fate, my number 4. Number 3 is My Father's Work. Now, this is a big production. It has miniatures, but you know what? Miniatures are not the reason this game exists. I mean, on this list. The miniatures are cool and everything. My Father's Work comes with a really good app within a fantastic story involved, which helps. But there's just really great components. And these are not like upgradable components. Now, this was a Kickstarter, so they were able to up the components. But having little glass bottles that you're collecting over the course of this game, little cogs, animals, the whole thing, the board, the flip book, there's a flip book with different boards that you're going to play on over the course of your game. It just comes together in a really fantastic way, fits in the insert very well. It's just a really solid, fantastic production. Number 2 is, well, this is the biggest production on this list, and this is Foundations of Rome. Foundations of Rome, a game that I thought didn't necessarily need such a gigantic production, but now that it's out and I'm playing with it, I think, how could it have been anything else? Every time I play Foundations of Rome, everyone's just oohs and ahs, because most of the time when you think about games with miniatures, you think about monsters and heroes and things like that. Foundations of Rome is all about the buildings. This is not the first game to do so. There was a game that came out 25 years ago called Big City, which had buildings, and Big City weeps as it looks at the Foundations of Rome buildings, especially if you get the ones with the wash on them. But wow, putting these buildings out, very satisfying. The game itself, though, very clean-cut, great game. I love the game. But as you place the buildings out on the board, it's easy to know whose buildings are what. It's easy to see where the cards go. The rules that you need to know for scoring are printed on the board. I really love the production of Foundations of Rome. And I really struggled about putting it as my number 1. But my number 1 here is Wonderlands War. Wonderlands War, now, I'm talking here, again, about the upgraded version of this because there are different things, but even the non-upgraded version looks great. First of all, wonderful art. Love the art of Wonderlands War, bringing Alice in Wonderland to life here, but the pieces are just unbelievable. You have a great little player board that gives you all the information you need. You have these little meeples that represent cards if you're the Queen of Hearts or whatever it might be, depending on what hero you are. All the cards, the symbology, it actually works and makes sense. The miniatures, if you upgrade to the miniatures, but it's the little poker chips and the bags as you pull these poker chips out, solid little poker chips, and play them to decide, who's going to win each battle. I like this one because all around, this is a great production. If you're like, Tom, what would you cut out of this? I would say, nothing, because it just comes together in an absolutely fantastic way. So that's my favorite production of 2022. So there you go. Those are my top 10 productions games of 2022. I'm Tom Vasel. Let's keep going.